we're coming on the air with that devastating news out of Kentucky. The governor says at least 6 children are dead from flooding that swept through the eastern part of the state, turning streets into rivers. Ahead, we'll look at how these once-in-a-thousand-year floods are only going to get worse. Plus, prices at the pump are starting to go down as profits for oil companies go way, way up. Why record numbers for Exxon, Chevron, Shell are not trickling down to consumers anytime soon. And we're looking at the impact of 2 major Supreme Court decisions. First, on abortion, how the end of Roe v. Wade is disproportionately hurting women in prisons, and how that case on prayer in schools may blur the lines on religion in public schools. Plus, a new warning from the FCC, scam texting complaints are on the rise. We'll show you how not to fall for these new schemes. And a growing number of Americans say college is just not worth it. In today's original, we dive into how people are rethinking higher education. Hey, I'm Zinklea Samoa in for Hallie. So when you hear something is going to happen once in 1,000 years, you're probably thinking, okay, this is a one-off, right? A once-in-a-lifetime thing, dare I say, an unprecedented event. And if you're like me, you're probably tired of living through unprecedented events. And you definitely do not think they're going to happen repeatedly. But it is what's happening right now here in the U.S., with 2 historic floods devastating communities in just 3 days. Nowhere is being hit harder than Kentucky, where the president issued a disaster declaration, and Governor Andy Beshear says at least 6 children are dead. The death toll is still being tallied. NBC News counts at least 16 people overall. The governor says the number could double and may include entire families.
I've certainly done 3+ flights and or tours over flooded areas. This is by far the worst. Keep praying. There's still a lot of people out there, still a lot of people unaccounted for. We're going to do our best to find them all.
The crest on the Kentucky River is surging to a record 21 feet. To put that in perspective, the old record was just 6 feet. You see here boats going over areas where boats are not supposed to be. Homes, stores, churches completely submerged. And the water is very much still flowing. It's knocking out cell reception, power, and access to one of the only major highways in this area. Put simply, it is totally devastating. And it's not just Kentucky. Flooding is happening in St. Louis, in Las Vegas, and Michelle Grossman's going to break down the forecast on where it'll hit next in just a sec. But we're going to start tonight on the ground with Jesse Kirsch. He's in Jackson, Kentucky. Jesse, you've been in the elements all day. What are you seeing? And is there a sign that the water is starting to slow?
So we've got 2 signs of good news here, Zinklea. First of all, you're talking about communication issues. Well, all day we've been having success with one phone carrier and none with the other, and we now have phone service on 2 different major carriers. So that is good news, whether that means they've permanently got the service restored or they've got some kind of temporary fix going. Phone reception appears to be better here. The other thing is we are seeing the waters recede where we are in Jackson. You can see this line behind me here of plants out in the water, including this section of greenery that is caked in mud. All of that was underwater as recently as 90 minutes, 2 hours ago. So the water level is certainly going down. However, you can see the aftermath here. See, there is someone standing out in the yard over there in rain boots. The water was partially up those vehicles before and on the porch of this home right here. And the man who lives there says that that is typically on an embankment about 20 feet up. So we're looking at water that has risen about 20 feet, he says, throughout this flooding. The water's receding here, but the gentleman who lives here tells me he doesn't think he's going to be able to take anything out of there. He thinks everything that's in there is completely lost. We spoke with him and others in the community earlier today. Here's what they've told us. What do you do next?
I hope we can get some help. You know, that's what I'm praying for right now.
Thank you.
Some kind of help, man.
Why aren't you going anywhere?
Well, there's no place to go and no reason to. It's we're safe here. We can keep going up to the water. This is the first time the water's ever got this high before.
So there are people who have been remaining in their homes, including some in this neighborhood. Others certainly have fled the area, have been evacuated, rescued, and of course there are at least 16 people who have died as of now, and we are expecting that death toll to continue to climb, according to officials here in Kentucky. Again, we are looking at the water starting to recede here. There are other areas where it's not necessarily going to crest until tomorrow, other areas in the river. And there is more rain coming here later in the weekend. And this is an area that really could use dry weather. It's getting it tomorrow, but it's not going to last in Clay.
Yeah, Jesse, and it's hard to believe more rain is going to hit that area. I mean, it's not lost on me. These are not just buildings, right? They're houses with homes and memories and history. You talk to some of those people. What are they saying to you, those who have lost their homes?
Yeah, and one woman earlier told me that she grabbed her mother's photos, family heirlooms, right, and got those upstairs safely. A gentleman here said that he put a television up as high as he could in there. But, of course, he's also thinking about this is where he's helped raise his grandchild. So there are people who are just trying to hold on to what they can of their lives, and it has nothing to do, it seems, with money, right? I mean, this is what it comes down to, is those emotional mementos, things that you cannot replace, no matter how much assistance you got from the government, from donations, from winning a lottery, right? No matter what kind of luck you're having there, these things cannot be replaced, and certainly some of this, unfortunately, has washed away in Clay.
Jesse Kerr, stay safe out there. Thank you. Now, let's see where we can expect the flooding threat to hit next with the forecast from Michelle Grossman. Michelle, where is this flooding heading, and how is climate change maybe making it worse?
Hey there, Zin Clay. I know we've been together a few times the past few weeks, and it seems like we have a new historical event. We were talking wildfires, intense heat, and now we're talking about historical flood events. And we're seeing the rain falling right now, torrential downpours, and we're going to see the rain falling over the weekend, returning to those flood areas by Sunday. So taking a look at radar, the overall picture showing us where that frontal boundary is, the same boundary that brought that flooding rains in parts of St. Louis. 9 inches there. We saw 9 inches in Hazard, Kentucky in just 12 hours. And you can see the radar is lit up. We're looking at really bright colors, the reds, the oranges, the yellows. That's where we're seeing the heaviest downpours. So through Oklahoma, even Arkansas, portions of the southeast, up through the Carolinas, Virginia. And where you see those yellow boxes, we have a severe thunderstorm watch. That is through 8 o'clock. That's just letting you know how much energy is out there. So we're going to be watching this as we go throughout the night and really throughout the weekend. Zooming a little closer here, we were watching that rain falling in portions of West Virginia, even seeing some heavy rain there. Kentucky looking a little bit better. We have some spotty showers, but better than we have been doing. We're going to be dry again tomorrow for the most part. Then it's going to ramp up on Sunday because that frontal boundary, that's nearly stationary. It's moving a little north and a little south. It's going to move more north on Sunday, bringing that rain back to the area. Tennessee also seeing some flooding rains in some spots. Now this evening, we're looking at 9 million people at risk for severe weather, winds gusting to 60 miles per hour, some hail, even the chance of a tornado. So that threat even extends into portions of West Virginia, into eastern Kentucky, western Virginia, and also portions of Tennessee. But really the bullseye is in the mid-Atlantic through D.C. and also Richmond. The flood threat does continue until Sunday. We're looking at Charleston, West Virginia, Beckley, Hazard, and also Somerset. So, Zinclay, this is not over. We're looking Saturday and Sunday for the chance of some flooding rains, and we could see some flash flooding as well.
Not over. Michelle Grossman, well, thanks for telling us where it's headed. Thank you. Now, let's talk Washington. Just a few hours ago, the White House giving some details about the Biden administration's plan to offer updated COVID booster shots in September. The federal government has ordered a combined 171 million doses of what are being called next-generation vaccines developed by Pfizer and Moderna. Officials hope the shots will provide more targeted protection to the most vulnerable and freshen up immunity for others who've gone nearly a year since their last booster. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said that the jabs will start arriving in the early fall, but she said it's still too early to say who will be eligible at first. Mike Memoli joins us now to talk about this. Mike, this comes as the BA.5 variant is dominating U.S. COVID cases. It's actually making up more than 80% of all new cases, according to the CDC. So what more do we know about this decision to try and get in front of another winter surge?
Well, Zinclay, it's been a couple of weeks since White House officials really first sounded the alarm about the highly transmissible nature of this BA.5 variant. And then you only need to look at what happened a week later. The president of the United States himself getting COVID-19 and getting specifically that very variant to really make this a much more high-profile issue. And so the White House, of course, now announcing that they have secured an additional 60 million doses of a variant-specific version of the COVID-19 vaccine and booster. That's an addition. That's from Moderna alone. They have another more than 100 million supply from Pfizer as well. And the goal here is to have a sufficient supply heading into the fall. Once the FDA approves the use of this variant-specific booster, that's an important caveat, because they want to make sure that Americans, especially those who haven't received a second booster, I'm technically not eligible. I know most other Americans are not eligible either, but they want people to be prepared because the best protection, as the president himself said this week, against serious illness is being vaccinated, is being boosted. But so many millions of Americans haven't had a booster even since late last year. And so they want to get this out as soon as possible.
Yeah, and you said they want people to be prepared clearly, right? They've ordered over 100 million doses of these boosters. I imagine that's pretty costly. So how are they expecting to pay for this?
Well, they've ordered the most that they can afford at the moment, and that's been part of what we've been hearing today from administration officials. They estimate that more than 600 million doses are really what they need to have sufficient doses for all Americans heading into the fall. And they're pointing the finger at Congress because you'll remember in March, the administration asked for more than $22 billion in emergency funding to make sure that we had the resources we need heading into the fall. Congress was close to appropriating some, not all of that, $15 billion in fact. And then there was sort of a late snafu. Some politics got in the way, and they had to strip all that funding out. So the administration has had to reshuffle some other funding in order to pay for just this initial down payment on what they really need. But there's going to be a bigger fight once Congress comes back from their summer recess in the fall to try to make sure they have funding to get what they really need, which is a lot more money.
A down payment, hopefully with a lot of return. Mike Memoli, thank you. Now, from medicine to money, we're wrapping up this big week for the economy with new numbers today showing Americans are spending more and paying way more. Ouch. The Commerce Department reports consumer spending jumped nearly 8% in June. That spending went up in part because costs went up. And you can see that in this price index the Federal Reserve likes to use as a measure of inflation. Costs jumping nearly 7% since last year. And folks, that's the highest since Joe Montana was playing in his first Super Bowl, January 1982. I will not even pretend I was alive then. One cost that is going down, though, gas prices. And hold on to your steering wheels. The national average is at $4.25 a gallon. That is a 60-cent drop from last month. How much lower those gas prices will get is still up in the air, though. And while we've seen these record high prices come down a bit, they're still pretty high. Today, we got a read on how these soaring gas and oil prices are benefiting the big oil companies' bottom lines, with Exxon, Chevron, Shell all posting record profits in the last quarter. So let's get into all this with Pippa Stevens, who covers energy for CNBC. Pippa, good to see you. So break this down. What is driving these record profits? We're still in a pandemic. So do you think these companies are trying to make up for some pandemic losses?
Well, Zinkley, it's really surging crude oil and natural gas prices as well as cost discipline. And that is really what's driving these profits. And it's important here to remember that these oil giants are not actually the ones selling fuel to consumers at your corner gas station. You know, more than half of stations are owned by an individual or family that owns just that single station. And gas prices typically go up faster than they fall because station owners need to make back the cost of higher wholesale prices. And part of the jump in gas prices is also because of a lack of refining capacity as demand rebounds. But this all comes back to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which has really roiled global energy markets, pushing up commodity prices and basically essentially here boosting energy companies' bottom line.
And Pippa, you know, you mentioned Russia's invasion of Ukraine, notable, but also notable as President Biden has called out the oil companies a lot, accusing them of lining their pockets at the expense of everyday Americans. Here's what he said last month in L.A.
We're going to make sure that everybody knows Exxon's profits. Why don't you tell them what Exxon's profits were this quarter? Exxon made more money than God this year.
Exxon made more money than God. Harsh words, strong words. So are we getting the sense that the oil companies will use those record profits to boost production, or is it all just going back to the shareholders?
Yeah, strong words indeed. And they are increasing output, but certainly not at the rate that $100 oil would have once prompted. And, you know, during the shale revolution, the model was drill, baby, drill. And that had kind of already started to reset prior to the pandemic. And then COVID and the downturn it caused for oil markets really changed the industry. And we can talk about record profits this quarter, but the picture changes a whole lot if you zoom out even just a little bit. In 2020, Exxon lost more than $20 billion and was booted from the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And so, as you noted, Wall Street is also playing a role here, since shareholders want companies to return money in the form of buybacks and dividends, and they don't want oil companies to raise their output. But in the meantime, you know, oil prices have come down, which has led gas prices to come down amid growing recession fears. So we are, you know, experiencing some relief here at the pump, but maybe not for the best reasons.
A lot to watch out for. Pippa, thank you. And coming up, Secretary of State Antony Blinken says he pressed Russia to accept a proposal to release WNBA star Brittany Griner and Paul Whelan. What the Kremlin's saying about that, plus Will Smith's public apology to Chris Rock. What he's saying about the slap in a nearly 6-minute video. Stay with us. Welcome back. 9/11 is one of the biggest tragedies in our nation's history. Today, family members of the victims of that terror attack are out in Bedminster, New Jersey, and they're slamming the Saudi-backed live golf tournament that teed off there today, and slamming former President Trump for hosting that tournament at his golf club. One group, 9/11 Justice, is specifically angry about the event's connection to a country with a long history of human rights abuses.
We have to get the narrative right. We have to educate America, and we have to educate the public. And if we do that, we may appeal to some of the conscience of these golfers, to the vendors, to anyone doing business with the Saudi Golf League.
All this as Live Golf is actually hoping to expand despite all the controversy. Their investments president and COO telling CNBC their league is not the only one with ties to Saudi Arabia, saying there are also PGA Tour partners with connections to Saudi Arabia. Gabe Gutierrez joins me now to look deeper into this. Gabe, we know yesterday these very same families reacted to the former president's defense of Saudi Arabia. What was their message?
Hi there, Zane Clay. Well, actually, for the past several days, these families have been very outspoken, slamming former President Trump and the Live Golf Series for holding this tournament just 50 miles from Ground Zero today. As you saw in that news conference near the golf course, they once again sounded off of what they see as a complete insult that renews their grief for what happened on that horrible day. Take a listen to what another family member had to say.
It's simple. The Saudis did it. They plotted it. They funded it. And now they're trying to distract every one of those sins with a golf tournament 50 miles away from Ground Zero.
And Zane Clay, of course, that comment specifically was reacting to what former President Trump said yesterday about people not getting to the bottom of 9/11, despite all evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, Gabe, and beyond the comments at the press conference, we also heard about a letter that they wrote and sent to former President Trump. It's reported that Trump actually responded directly to the group. What exactly did he say, and what was in that letter?
Well, not quite directly Trump himself, but according to one of the members of 9/11 Justice, the first man who you played an interview from at this press conference, he actually just confirmed to NBC News that on Saturday that he had gotten a call from an aide to former President Trump, that apparently that aide was told by Mr. Trump himself to call this group after the group had previously sent a letter to the former president slamming this tournament, expressing their concerns about it being held on his golf course. This aide, apparently, according to this family member, said that she had been asked to call on behalf of President Trump, and that he had been, quote, flattered by getting this letter from the group, even though this family member said letter was actually very critical. So they didn't really understand the response. Still, Zinclay, this speaks overall to what these 9/11 families feel is a tone-deaf response from the former president. This tournament is expected to continue over the next coming days, and Trump Properties are expected to host another live tournament in the coming months. Zinclay.
Gabe Gutierrez, thank you for that. And elsewhere here in the U.S., some key primaries are coming next week, so get your I voted stickers ready. And a new development, 2 of the top Republican Senate candidates in Arizona say they would have objected to the 2020 election results if they were in Congress at the time. Take a listen.
You know, before certifying the election, yeah, you got to make sure that it was all legit.
I would absolutely object it because you got to go back and find out what went on.
Blake Masters, who you heard from first there, is the front runner and has former President Trump's endorsement. His main opponent is Jim Lamont, a solar power company exec who has spent $14 million of his own money on this campaign. Large chunk of change there. And whoever wins will take on incumbent Democrat Senator Mark Kelly in November. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard joins us now from Arizona to discuss this. Vaughn, as we just heard, the top 2 GOP candidates for senator in Arizona both told you they would have objected to the 2020 election results had they been in Congress at the time. How important is that fact in Arizona?
Zinclay, not only is it in Arizona, but still it's a mainstay in the Republican Party for the most part across this country here. The election denialism of 2020 is still a prominent part of a successful Republican campaign. And that is why you see Blake Masters and Jim Lamont atop the polls here in a crowded GOP field ahead of Tuesday's primary. They're not household names right now nationally, but come Tuesday, one of these individuals is, barring an upset from one of the other candidates, is going to be facing incumbent Democrat Mark Kelly as Republicans look back to take Senate control. And frankly, there is another candidate who we talked to yesterday, Mick McGuire, who is a former Major General in the U.S. Air Force, formerly led the National Guard here in Arizona and was in charge of emergency response for the state government. He's lagging in the polls, and he is the one candidate here who has said that if he had been in the U.S. Senate, he would have certified the election results because as a states' rights guy, if a state certifies election results, then it's the prerogative of the U.S. Congress to count the Electoral College votes as such. But look where he's at in the polls. He's lagging here, and that is why you saw Donald Trump endorse Blake Masters. But that has not kept Jim Lamont from running as a Trump acolyte himself and saying that Donald Trump simply made the wrong choice in terms of who he picked. But ultimately, the Trump endorsement and election denialism is still such a key part of running a Republican campaign here in 2022.
And Vaughn, I wonder how else are both of these candidates aligning themselves to Trump, and how necessary is that of a strategy to take in Arizona specifically, while we know it's important nationally?
Right. I put that question to Blake Masters because he's not necessarily a traditional conservative, but also not a traditional libertarian. He liked to describe himself as a, quote, America First conservative here because our politics has been so restructured over the last couple years. And when I asked specifically about Donald Trump, take a listen to what he told me.
Look, I'm my own guy. You know, I'm not trying to copy Trump's mannerisms or anything like that, but his policies were great. The America First agenda. That you know, we got a lot of it done. We didn't get all of it done, but it was great. It's why everybody in this state was basically better off 4 years ago. And so I'm not going to run away from that success.
There's a lot to unpack when we talk about Trump-aligned figures in the Republican Party today. Of course, several of them, like Herschel Walker, Mehmet Oz, J.D. Vance, have ascended to the nominations for the U.S. Senate in their respective states, and Blake Masters could very well be the guy here in Arizona. At the same time, come general election here, there's a lot at stake because in 2020, you'll recall, Joe Biden beat Donald Trump here by just over 10,000 votes, and Democrat Mark Kelly beat the Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate here. So there is a lot at play here and a lot to unpack in the final 100 days before this general election yet.
Final 100 days, definitely a race to watch, Vaughn. Thank you. And the Supreme Court's ruling overturning Roe v. Wade is now raising concerns for women who are behind bars. These women could be disproportionately affected by abortion bans in states across the country. Why? Well, just look at a study conducted in 2016 and 2017. It found that out of 816 pregnant women in state and federal prisons, only 1% of pregnancies resulted in an abortion. A pretty small number. In contrast, in 2020, nearly 20% of pregnancies nationwide ended in abortion. It's a potential disparity, leaving many with questions. And Tremaine Lee, host of MSNBC's Into America podcast, joins me now, hopefully with some answers. Tremaine, good to see you. I know you talked to an advocate that says incarcerated women have largely been left out of the conversation around abortion access. Tell me about what you're hearing.
Yes, Zen Clay, I spoke with a woman named Pamela Wynn who started an organization called Restore Her, which advocates for women behind bars. Now, Pamela isn't just an advocate. She was incarcerated while pregnant, and because of her treatment, she says she ended up having a miscarriage. So she said even during the best of times, things were pretty bad for marginalized women in particular, who were further marginalized by being incarcerated. Now, she's working to try to change things, but she says that the hill towards progress is extremely steep. Let's take a listen.
It's a power thing. When I work on this legislation, the biggest opposition that I receive is from the sheriffs who don't want to be told how to run their facility. So everything is about, that patriarchy, that power, and just, again, not wanting to address things because we want to keep a certain appearance out there.
Keep a certain appearance out there and keep some women and their issues in the shadows. But Pamela says she's working hard to fight back.
And you're talking about keeping the issue in the shadows. I mean, at least 12 states do not have written procedures for abortions within their prisons. That's pretty striking. No protocol for what many consider essential women's health care. So what's being done about that?
Well, Zinclay, the real issue, as Pamela told me, so thoroughly, is that even those facilities that actually in states that have, rules and policy on the books that allow access to abortion, oftentimes they just don't actually provide it, or the women themselves have paid for transportation and pay for the procedures, and it's just a whole tangle. But what they're doing to push back is Pamela and her organization are crafting legislation that goes beyond just abortion access. It's like, how do you treat women with respect? She's also pushing a law that would allow women who find out they're pregnant before they go to prison to be allowed to stay outside of the prison walls for 12 weeks after their child is born. Then they'll serve their sentence. Other policy measures would be to ban the shackling of pregnant women in prison. She said when she was incarcerated while pregnant, that's what caused her abortion, because she was shackled between her hands and wrists. So there's a full court press on the actual facilities to uphold their own policies, but also pushing state legislators to expand protections for women who are incarcerated and pregnant.
Tremaine, really important reporting. Thank you. Thank you so much. And there's another Supreme Court decision that's got everyone talking, and it's impacting the separation of church and schools tonight in states across the country. The court ruled last month that a former Washington State high school football coach had a right to pray on the field after games. That coach, Joseph Kennedy, would pray at the 50-yard line after games, but the school district said no thanks, that coach needed to find a more private place to do that because they didn't want it to look like they were endorsing any religious views. But the Supreme Court said what Coach Kennedy was doing actually was private. The game was over, so he was protected by freedom of expression and religion. Since that ruling, one superintendent in Michigan said he's open to the idea of athletes praying before or after games. And Ohio's lieutenant governor urged schools there to review their policies on prayer. Even before the Supreme Court decision, though, Florida actually had a law requiring public schools in the state to set aside time for kids to meditate or pray. Gary Grumbach has been looking into this for us. Gary, this is such a personal issue, right? Spirituality playing out on the public stage. So what did that Michigan superintendent tell you about how the court's ruling changed his approach or stance?
Hey, there's Clay. Yeah, I've talked to folks on both sides of this issue over the past few days, and that superintendent, Dr. Bill DeFrance, he's a superintendent of Eden Rapids School District up near Lansing, Michigan, and he says he's very open to the idea of prayer before or after school-sponsored athletic events, but he wants it to be an educational experience, perhaps a Christian prayer one week, a Hindu prayer the next week, maybe a Jewish prayer the week after that. But he says he doesn't want to introduce this all at once. He doesn't want to rush to this decision. He wants it to be a well-thought out move. Here's what he had to tell me earlier this week.
If you think about kids and about how we handle a lot of things, I think we would want to engage the parents and see how the parents would handle that. I think we'd want to make sure that we were being respectful of who the opponent was.
Now, because Eden Rapids is a public school there south of Lansing, Michigan, he says another idea he has is to maybe open it up to the community, have a vote, have a referendum. Does the community want to see a religious activity before or after these games? And then it could be up to those local teams to decide what to do. Isn't Clay?
And Gary, I know you said you spoke to both sides, right? And you also spoke with Annie Laurie Gaylor, the co-founder of Freedom for Religion Foundation. She is against religion in schools. And it's important to note the SCOTUS ruling does not appear to open the door to teacher-led prayer in the classroom, right? That's an important point of clarification. But talk to us about how groups against religion in schools are reacting to this SCOTUS decision.
Yeah, the Supreme Court decided there that because Coach Kennedy wasn't in the classroom, it was not during the game itself, that he was able to do that in his own personal prayer. That was their decision. But Annie Laurie Gaylor, who is of this organization, she's been dealing with this for decades, well before the Kennedy decision, of violations coming into her office of prayers that are happening in school, in athletic events, in these public school spaces. And she says violations have really picked up since the Kennedy decision. Everything from violations where it's prayer before a wrestling match, prayer, even Bible verses said during the classroom setting. And then she has to take these violations and send them to lawyers who then send notes to the school. But she says it really feels like this has given them a green light to do more of this activity. And she points to the Bill of Rights, of course, which does not say directly the separation of church and state, but it does say there's no national religion and there's no establishment of a religion. So she thinks religion should be kept far from the school building or even the wrestling mat. Clay?
One SCOTUS decision with a lot of implications. Gary, thank you. Now, let's get over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about this Friday night before you head into your weekend. Number 1, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says he spoke with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov today, apparently for the first time since Russia invaded Ukraine. Secretary Blinken says he pushed the Kremlin to accept a proposal to release WNBA star Brittany Griner and another American, Paul Whelan. In a statement, Lavrov suggested the two sides handle this situation using, quote, quiet diplomacy. Number 2, prosecutors in Spain say they're going to ask a court to sentence Colombian pop star Shakira, yes, Shakira, to more than 8 years in prison if she's convicted in an expected trial over her alleged tax fraud. She's been charged with failing to pay the Spanish government $15 million in taxes. Shakira rejected a settlement deal this week, and her publicists say she's always followed the law. No trial date has been set yet. Number 3, remember the slap? You know, the one heard around the world? Well, today, actor Will Smith posted a public apology to Chris Rock and Rock's family after slapping him at the Oscars earlier this year. In the nearly 6-minute video, Smith says he's reached out to Rock, and the message he got back was that Rock is not ready to talk yet. The Fresh Prince also previously apologized in a written statement, saying what he did was out of line. Number 4, the Beehive is in formation. Beyonce's album Renaissance was officially released today, and Queen Bee is acknowledging that dreaded album leak. Beyonce thanked fans for waiting to share and listen to her new bop, saying, "I can't thank y'all enough for your love and protection." Number 5, the Mega Millions jackpot is now more than, wait for it, $1.2 billion. If someone wins tonight and they pick the cash option, they'll get something like $747 million. This is the 4th time a lottery jackpot has topped $1 billion big ones, which reminds me I should probably pick up a ticket. And still to come, more Americans are questioning whether college is worth it. A big reason, the cost. That's in our original tonight. Stay with us. bring you today's original with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been keeping an eye on. Today, we're talking college. More and more Americans are asking themselves, is a college degree still worth it? With inflation hitting American pockets hard and tuition costs rising, folks are rethinking higher education. In fact, some 2/3 of Americans, according to a new survey, believe that well-paying, stable jobs can be obtained with only a high school diploma or GED. And it isn't just hype or big talk. Many are actually putting college off, dropping out, or not going at all. Stephen Romo has more.
Getting a college education can be one of the most important financial decisions you'll make in your lifetime.
The cost of college is absolutely insane. He'll be a senior next year, and then we'll have to be dealing with that, and we've been looking at colleges.
We definitely know the struggle and feel that, but she's the one that pays for it.
But now, in the middle of an ongoing pandemic and an economic downturn, more Americans are rethinking higher education's value.
2/3 of Americans believe that you can find a well-paying job, a stable job, with only a high school degree or equivalent and no college education.
That study by think tank New America adds to the growing trend of research showing that some Americans are either not going or not finishing college, in large part due to the increasing cost of getting a diploma.
People are really trying to figure out what makes the most sense. Do I take time out of the workforce, or can I work immediately with a good wage?
Some colleges now raising tuition as much as 5%, citing inflation after tuition costs remain stable for a majority of the pandemic.
If you are thinking about enrolling in college or what the value proposition of college is, and you're measuring the cost, you're measuring in terms of how many gallons of gas is it, or how many eggs can I buy with what I would pay for this.
A survey released this month by bestcolleges.com finds 44% of currently enrolled undergraduate students with federal or private loans have considered dropping out of school due to the financial burden.
It's only worth it if you have an extremely high-paying job as a result of that, like maybe law school, going into law after that. But a lot of other fields, it's not really worth it, in my opinion.
I see my mom; she's still 30 years later, still paying off college debt. So, I mean, I don't want to be in that position 30 years from now.
The answer to is college worth it is unsurprisingly complex. Some research shows getting a diploma is worth it in the long run, especially for low-income students.
That's sort of the sad paradox. College is most worth it for the people who can least afford it.
A report from Georgetown University shows bachelor's degree holders generally earn a whopping 84% more over their lifetime than those with just a high school diploma. But nowadays, the top 10 best-paying majors are related to engineering or computer science, which represent just a fraction of the American population.
Right now, the labor market's really tight. So if the labor market remains this tight going into next year's survey, I think we'll continue to see numbers that show Americans questioning the value of higher education.
Stephen, such interesting reporting. So many jobs say today, you need to have a master's degree or higher education, college degree. So in your reporting, I wonder, did you find that in today's economy, forgoing higher education can actually result in stable, high-paying jobs? We heard a lot from people saying they don't want to go, but what are the results?
Yeah, that's sort of the caveat to all of this. It can result in these high-paying jobs, but you're at a much bigger risk in the economy right now if you don't have a college degree. That is still true. Some studies show that you can make up to $1 million more over a lifetime with the college degree. Those things haven't changed, but people becoming more aware of student debt and realizing that if they don't complete their degree, they're still going to be burdened with that debt is making them make these choices. Sinclair.
And Stephen, I mean, it's impossible to talk about college without loans in the U.S. I don't know about you. I won't put you on the spot. I know that I have, a handful. And there's been lots of talk about student loan forgiveness being rolled out by the Biden administration. How might mass debt cancellation impact this trend that you reported on?
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to even step foot into a college without student loans and student aids. And Clay, it is an interesting question right now. Of course, it's still early on, and student debt forgiveness hasn't actually taken place at a level that people are still asking the Biden administration for. So there's not a lot of information. There's not a lot of surveys being done right now to see how that will affect enrollment or how that will affect people actually taking out student loans. But from the people I've talked to for this story, it seems like it's not really changing things much just yet either way. I mean, you can just imagine talking to high school seniors. It's really hard for many of them to conceptualize that far in the future. They are not really they're thinking that is their real life later on. They're making plans for today, many of them wanting that college experience and many others wanting to make that money right now. So that's one of the things yet to be seen, Sinclair.
And Stephen, I wonder, I mean, you were outside talking to people on the ground. Did anything surprise you in terms of what they said about college and affordability?
Yeah, one interesting thing that kept happening is I would interview people who happen to be from another country, people from France. I interviewed two families from France with children who are college age, and they were saying that I was sort of explaining the system here a little bit to them, and they're saying in Europe what a different system it is. If you go to school in the same area, the cost is either free or very low. So it seems to be a sort of a uniquely American situation we're in right now with student loans. That was pretty surprising, Sinclair.
A uniquely American cost. Stephen Romo, thank you.
Thanks.
And coming up, a Texas jury ordered a cable company to pay the family of a murdered woman billions of dollars. More on that case in The Local. We'll be right back. Well, as you know, NBC covers hundreds of stories each day, and because you couldn't possibly read, watch, or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we like to call The Local. We start with news out of our Southeast Bureau. Cable company Charter Communications, which operates Spectrum, has been ordered to pay $7 billion to the family of an 83-year-old woman killed by an off-duty technician. Roy Holden Jr. killed Betty Thomas in her home in December 2019. He had come to her home the day before for a service call. Holden was sentenced to life in prison after pleading guilty last year. A spokesperson for Charter says it plans to appeal. Also from our Southeast Bureau, Miami Marlins pitcher Daniel Castano is recovering okay after he was drilled in the head by an 104-mile-per-hour line drive on the mound. Oof. Castano was pitching for the Marlins in the first inning of their 7-6 win over the Cincinnati Reds when the accident happened. Marlins manager said that the ball's impact was partially lessened since it hit the bill of Castano's cap, but that the player suffered a forehead contusion with a mild concussion and will be evaluated further. From our Northeast Bureau, the largest summertime hot air balloon festival in the U.S. kicked off today in New Jersey. It's called the New Jersey Lottery Festival of Ballooning. Something like 175,000 people are expected to go there this weekend. Now, texters beware. If you get a message from a number you don't recognize, the FCC warns it could be part of a cryptocurrency scam. The feds say spam and scam complaints are skyrocketing. And 2022 is on track to be the first year more people have reported scammers contacting them by text than with a phone call. The FCC says it works like this text thread you see on your screen. You get an odd text from a wrong number. Then the scammers try to establish a relationship, and then eventually they try to persuade victims to give away money under the false impression that they're investing in crypto. Our privacy and technology reporter Kevin Collier wrote about this on NBCNews.com. Kevin, thieves are broadening the way they talk to people into scams. You actually texted back and forth with a scammer. Talk to us about what that was like.
You know, like most people, I've gotten a lot of these messages over the past few months. I had actually already launched on this story. I'd spoken with a few victims who had lost quite a bit of money, but they were concerned with how much they're willing to go public with it. So I'd already done a bit of research into this story, work on it. Went on Tuesday, lo and behold, I got another one. So I acted like a mark to see if they would try to string me along and then kind of casually pivot the conversation to inviting me to invest in cryptocurrency. And lo and behold, that's exactly what they did.
And Kevin, in the last year, at least 244 people have lost a combined $42 million to fake crypto investment scams. So what's the best way for people to not fall for this type of thing? You talk about how prevalent it is. I know I've seen it on my phone as well.
I think the best way to not fall for it is two steps. The first is inoculation. You should know, everyone should know, that it's not really realistic that a stranger is going to invite you to the investment opportunity of a lifetime. And I know that sounds absurd. Hopefully that does sound absurd to most people. But these scammers, they don't end up hooking a ton of people. They hook a tiny number of people really severely, like bilk them of their life savings severely for hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. The victims who felt badly that I spoke with, they were single older men who, ended up striking up this what they thought was a real human relationship over text. The other thing is just learn to not respond when you get these random texts. That's not satisfying. I know they're invasive, but that's the reality we live in. You can't really block these messages. There's not really a way to do that. And there's very little to no good that will come from responding to them.
And Kevin, briefly, what's the consequence? I think that's the big question. How many of these scammers actually get caught and prosecuted?
For this specific one, so far, I'm unaware of any, at least for ones who have attacked people in the U.S. This scam in particular has been big in Asia for a couple of years. It's only caught on in the U.S. more recently. A general rule of thumb with online digital scams is perpetrators are sometimes caught, sometimes a big international law enforcement operation, but a small fraction of them.
Kevin Collier on an issue that's impacting all of our phones. Thank you. And when we come back, have your eye on any big concerts this summer? Well, you probably got sticker shock at the box office. Why tickets have gotten so darn expensive and how to score the best ones next. All right, so this concert season is on track to be one of the busiest on record, but it's also notable for another reason. Fans say ticket prices are more expensive than usual. Some tickets to Bruce Springsteen's upcoming tour are going for more than, oh boy, $5,000 on Ticketmaster. The situation caused so much controversy, one New Jersey lawmaker scheduled a hearing next week to examine the industry's ticket practices. NBC's Aaron McLaughlin has more on why exactly ticket prices are going up and what you can do if you want to see your favorite artists.
Hayes and Clay, after nearly 2 years of concert cancellations and performance postponements, live music is back at full volume. In fact, this year is on track to be the busiest concert season on record. New data says ticket prices are hitting a high note. And not the good kind. The average ticket price for the first half of 2022 was $108. That's up nearly 18% compared to pre-pandemic pricing. Springsteen fans were stunned when tickets for his upcoming tour went on sale, with some seats reportedly going for as much as $5,500. Experts say those four-figure tickets are a result of Ticketmaster's dynamic pricing model, which allows artists and promoters to adjust prices based on demand. Ticketmaster defends the policy, saying it ensures profits go to the artist instead of the secondary market. Experts say when it comes to prices, the artists and their management have a lot of sway. Take a listen.
Up to the artists to make their tours more accessible. You're basically asking an artist to do what almost no one else in any other business would do, which is to willfully walk away from millions, or in some cases, tens of millions of dollars.
Without dynamic pricing, the extra cash is collected by resale sites like StubHub, where Adele, Bad Bunny, and Elton John all have seats listed for tens of thousands of dollars over the ticket's face value. And that's money the artists don't see. StubHub told NBC News that tickets listed at astronomically high prices rarely sell unless demand warrants it. Regardless, artists are facing backlash, especially online. The boss did not comment when asked by NBC News, but his manager told the New York Times in a statement the average ticket price has been in the mid-200 range. What he believes is a, quote, fair price to see someone universally regarded as among the very greatest artists of his generation. So what's a music lover to do if they want to get their fix and still have enough money left over for merchandise? Start with the primary seller, the box office. They should have the best prices. Timing is important. Either purchase your tickets as soon as they go on sale or wait until the day before before or the day after for deals. Check to see if your credit card offers access to pre-sales or join the artist fan club to jump the line. But experts say the bottom line, unless fans decide enough is enough and stop purchasing tickets at these prices, they warn this is likely the new normal. Zinclay.
Ooh, pricey tickets, Aaron. I guess I'll stick to listening in my living room. Well, that is a wrap for this hour. I'm Zinclay Asamoah in for Hallie. Have a great weekend. Coverage picks up right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.